Welcome back to another episode of Reddit's Dark Side. In today's episode, we cover paranormal encounters. Posted by Godless Nomad. Let me start by saying I am a huge skeptic and can almost always find an explanation for supposed paranormal encounters. I don't believe in ghosts, and I'm pretty good at using logic and reason to debunk most stuff. But I can't explain this one. I've been trying to for years, and I just can't. Now, let's go back about 10 years, give or take. I was living in a house in a small town whose previous inhabitants all died of old age, natural causes. We rented the house, and the landlord was the eldest son of the previous inhabitants. I would hear footsteps in the attic pretty regularly and see orbs in the dining room often, but none of that is very substantial and is easily explained away. Orbs could easily just be dust in the sunlight, and footsteps are easily explained because we had 2 large dogs and 2 cats who had full roam of the house. That's not why I'm here though. The reason I'm posting tonight is to tell you about the time that I was laying in bed one night and felt something I still can't make sense of. I was still wide awake, watching TV, scrolling whatever on social media platform I was using at the time, so this experience wasn't a dream or anything like that. My bed sat in the corner of the room with the headboard and one side against the wall. It was a small single, so it wasn't very big at all. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall and took up most of the bed. I was laying on my side facing the TV with my back towards the wall, and the time was around 2 a.m. on a warm summer night. As I'm laying there relaxing, I felt the mattress compress behind me as if someone or something had sat down. I felt something touch my shoulder as well. I can only describe it as feeling like a hand gently placed on my shoulder. When I turned around to see what it could be, there was nothing behind me except for the wall, but I was able to see exactly where the mattress had compressed. I was able to see the indent in the mattress as if there was something with substantial weight sitting there, but there was nothing. A shiver ran down my spine, and I could feel a cold spot in the area that the thing was sitting. Only a second or two later, I felt the hand leave my shoulder and watched as the mattress decompressed. Whatever it had left, I quickly got out of bed, grabbed my blanket and pillow, and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. I didn't even turn off the TV. I stayed up all night thinking about this experience and trying to make sense of it. 10 years later, I'm still unable to make sense of it. That was the first and only time that I've ever experienced anything like this. As a skeptic, I don't want to believe that this was paranormal. I want to think that it was something explainable, but I simply can't explain it. I still think about it regularly and just doesn't make sense. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you ever had a similar experience, or if there is a possible explanation that I may be overlooking. Did something visit me that night, or is there a reasonable explanation that I just haven't thought of? What do you think? The one that I can't explain. Posted by Godless Nomad. Posted by Galsko. Okay, so this will probably be my first and last post in this sub, as I am a non-believer, or was. The story goes back as long as I can remember. All back to my childhood, and I can't say for sure when exactly it started. Also, sorry if my English is bad. It's not my native language. My bedroom used to be on the first floor, just next to the front door. Next to the front door, we had 2 large windows going all the way to the floor on both sides. And I had a normal window in my bedroom facing the same direction. In front of my window, I had some very sheer curtains in white. And next to the front door, there were no curtains. My bed was situated across from my door, with my bed facing away from the window. My pillow would approximately be 1 meter from the window. Anyway, what would sometimes happen was that I could hear footsteps, clear and loud footsteps, coming from one side of the front towards my window. Then the sound would abruptly stop, and sometimes I could also see the shape of a rather tall and big-built man outside my window. It was hard to say exactly how big, but from the shape I would say taller than a normal man, but with the same build. As a child, I used to compare the shape with Jaws from James Bond, as he had a similar shape and was very tall. Now, this sometimes happened, and my brother had his room across from me, but he barely slept there, as he was scared of the dark. Eventually, my dad moved there when he was snoring. My brother hasn't heard anything that he can remember, but he also moved upstairs before he hit his teens. This happened frequently, and several nights I would lay still for at least an hour or so. unable to move, as I was completely paralyzed with fright, thinking if I just lay still, the thing outside my window will either think my bed is empty or that I am sleeping and just go away. Eventually, I started to doubt myself and what I was seeing myself. As I had been told so many times, it was probably just my imagination. I opted to try to catch it in the act and tried to put something in front of the window in advance and then peek out in the hallway to see if I could see something walking past, but nothing. I also tried to use my web camera to record through the whole night, but never caught anything interesting. I tried to tell my parents, but they kept telling me it was my imagination, and that I either was having a bad dream or my imagination was just taking it too far. Now, in their defense, I have a pretty vivid imagination and have been scared of lots of things that don't exist before, but I've never before or after heard or seen anything except for this walking man. And then there was this one night. I was sitting up chatting with online friends, and the time was about 3 a.m. I remember the time because I freaked out about it being 3 a.m. after watching The Exorcist for the first time. When there was someone trying to open the front door, 3 times they pushed down the handle, and I almost peed myself. I remember telling the group I was chatting with, thinking in case I die or something, police will find out what happened. After waiting for a bit, I ran over to the opposite room and woke my dad up, who I was happy was in that room that night. He didn't believe me and said I had been having a bad dream, but I had been completely awake and didn't even feel a bit sleepy. But after a bit, he agreed to come with me and brought a flashlight to see out the windows. Nothing nowhere. Then I moved away, and when I got back to visit my parents, I was wondering if I would still hear the steps, but I didn't. They had stopped, but I could never completely relax in that bed. Should maybe also add that when it was winter and snowy outside, I didn't just hear the footsteps, but the snow against shoe sound also, which just made it more real. But the next day, there wouldn't necessarily be additional shoe prints. So I want to add, we did not live in any city or something. I could walk into dense forest after taking about 30 steps. Now a friend I told this to said it might be a ghost or something, possibly looking after me. And at that time, I started to believe that story. Because a ghost, even if it was scary, was less scary than the alternatives. Now I'm not really sure what to believe. Was it a ghost? Was it a person? Or was I hallucinating? Or something for over 15 years? An encounter with the unexplained. Posted by SpiderTuber6766. So, this is my personal experience. It has only happened once, and never again, but I'll never forget it. It was 4 years ago in 2018. It was a school night, as I was having trouble sleeping. I usually take a while to fall asleep, but this was like I physically couldn't sleep. So I decided to go use the bathroom. I browsed on the phone, on the toilet, and just went along with my business. The way the house was structured was there was a small hall connecting 2 rooms and the rest of the house. So when I walked back to the room, I look out the hall to the kitchen as I see it. In the kitchen was a glowing light, as it was a rectangle shape floating, as it surrounded by a black mass of smoky substance. Now at first, I thought it was my fridge, but it was on the wrong side of the kitchen. Then I started to think of other reasons as it stared right at me. We kept eye contact for a minute, as I was so scared I didn't even think of filming with the phone. But I couldn't be staring all night. I need sleep and school is tomorrow, so I make a run for my room. As I shut the door, I feel it at the door, as it closed the big distance of the house in just a second. I didn't even lock the door. I didn't care and just jumped in bed and hid under my sheets. Next thing I knew, it was inside my room. I didn't even hear the door open. It floated above my bed as it breathed down my neck. It soon laid in bed with me as I was petrified to move. The next morning, it was gone as I slept with that thing all night. I tell my family and friends, as my mother told me, it was a guardian angel. I'm still not sure what I saw. My rational explanation, I was just tired. I was hallucinating because of it. It wasn't a dream or sleep paralysis because I was moving and awake. I had another small experience with the same being as it slept in my bed again, as I just didn't try to do anything, and the next morning it was gone again. Haven't seen or felt it since. My brain thought it was the shape of a human with a long black body, and the light was its face. If you know what I saw, please tell me, because I will not let this rest. I know what I saw was a real being. We were both aware of each other. We both knew we saw each other. so I must know. Was it a ghost, a shadow person, an alien, angel or demon? Whatever it was, I'm just glad it was friendly. Posted by the Rifleman _ of 96, and it goes as following. First off, I like to think of myself as a scientifically minded individual. I try to find any possible explanation for something before I immediately assume it's a ghost. But nobody that has stepped foot in my childhood home has left it without believing in ghosts. We moved into the house when I was about 5 or 6, and at first nothing really happened. The very first time I had any idea was after a year or so. On this night, I was laying in bed in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. In my room, my bed is laid out in such a manner that the door is 90 degrees to my right as I'm laying down on my back. The door to my bedroom was open, as I'm from the south and we didn't have AC, so everyone had the windows open and the fans to let the house breathe. Anyway, as I'm laying there, unable to sleep, I turn my head to the right. Standing there in the doorway is the clear silhouette of a man. It did not have any features for me to see, just the outline. Even though I didn't see his face, I knew it was a man, and I knew that he was looking right at me. I froze in fear for what felt like an eternity, and eventually grabbed whatever was near to throw at the door to try to close it. I was unable to get it closed, so I eventually just rolled on my left side and hoped he would go away. Eventually, I got the courage to look, and he was gone, and I went back to sleep. That was just the beginning of my childhood paranormal encounters within the home. And to be clear, after growing up in the home, I now know the spirits in the house are not malicious or hurtful in any way. Sometimes they just want someone to know they're there and will make themselves known, but never in a bad way. It would break the app with the amount of stories I have about the house, but that is just the first one of many. Thank you for checking out another episode of Reddit's Dark Side, where you can find on all podcast platforms and YouTube.